So we're discussing about the origin of life and the chemical evolution, now biological evolution. In the previous period, I've told you about the microspheres and quasar waves. So now we'll discuss about the origin of primary organisms. The quasar waves contained different molecules in different combinations and proportions. So different molecules in different combinations and different proportions. They were distinct from the surrounding water. So these quasar waves, they are distinct from the surrounding water. According to Oparin, life has originated from quasar waves. So this is the view of Oparin. Life has originated from quasar waves. The proteins and nucleic acids carry more electric charges. The proteins and nucleic acids carry more electric charges distributed on their surfaces. That was the cause of their alignment with respect to one another. So there is alignment because of more electric charges on their surface. World 1954 also supported the view of formation of quasar waves in the sea on the primitive earth. So this was also supported by World 1954. Such structures were considered as intermediates between molecules and organisms, because molecules already formed, now organisms will be formed. So these quasar waves are regarded as the intermediates between the molecules and the organisms. Quasar waves having nucleoproteins surrounded by nutrient cell means covering SHELL, nutrient cell, and with a limiting surface membrane was the simplest form of life. So quasar waves having nucleoproteins surrounded by nutrient cells and with a limiting surface membrane was the simplest form of life, or free gene. Simplest form of life or free gene. A number of such free genes joined with each other, forming larger units comparable to present day virus. So that can be compared to the present day virus and be named as protovirus. Now, early cells. So early cells, there are two main categories of cells appeared which gave rise to the living world. Two categories of cell means the Moneran cell and Protistan cell, or prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. So two categories of cell. The earliest cells contained nucleoprotein surrounded by nutrient cell. You can see these are the nucleoproteins surrounded by nutrient cell. These cells resemble the present day Monera, and are regarded as the ancestors of modern bacteria. These are the prokaryotic cells. There is no nuclear membrane. So you can see the nucleoproteins, they are present in the compartment. So that is the origin of Moneran cell type. So these are the ancestors of modern bacteria. In some of the cells descended from them, nucleoprotein clumps aggregated to form a condensed central mass. You can see here, this is the so the nucleoproteins, they condensed. So in some of these cells descended from them, the nucleoproteins clumps aggregated to form a condensed central mass. So these, they became condensed to form a central mass. This mass was separated from the rest of the cell substance by a fine membrane. You can see this is the fine membrane, that is the nuclear membrane, fine membrane, and constituted the nucleus. The descendant cells having nucleus are referred to as the protista, which are the ancestors of modern eukaryotes. So these are the prokaryotes, these are the eukaryotes. Then major descendants of early cells. Major descendants of early cells. The natural food sources gradually declined, which compelled the early cell types to evolve different methods of obtaining food. So natural food sources gradually declined, and this compelled the early cell types to evolve different methods of obtaining food. Number one, the parasites. Some organisms derived their food from other by staying within the body of them and became parasites. So they stayed in the body of other organisms and derived their food. They are the parasites. Number two, saprophytes. Some organisms obtained their food from decaying organic matter of dead cells. From decaying organic matter of dead cells and became saprophytes. Then chemosynthesizers. Chemosynthesizers. Some obtained their energy from inorganic molecules. So some obtained their energy from inorganic molecules which were readily available in the atmosphere, and became chemosynthesizers. Then photosynthesis. Some developed a method of utilizing solar energy, the sun ray, solar energy, which was a never-ending source. So it was a never-ending source, solar energy. They synthesized their own food by a process called photosynthesis. This involves trapping of solar energy by a pigment. You must have known what is that pigment. That is the chlorophyll. So this involves trapping of solar energy by a pigment, chlorophyll, which was formed in their body. They give rise to plant kingdom. Then oxygen revolution. So because of the formation of plants, there was oxygen revolution, because in photosynthesis they take carbon dioxide and give up oxygen. Now free oxygen will be available in the atmosphere. So oxygen revolution. With the evolution of photosynthesizing organisms, means the plant kingdom, free oxygen means molecular oxygen, not O2. Free oxygen means molecular oxygen was released to the atmosphere, which oxidized methane and ammonia, to carbon dioxide, water and nitrogen. So methane, so this oxygen, you can see, it oxidized methane and ammonia to form carbon dioxide, nitrogen and water. This is the reason why there is no methane and ammonia in the present atmosphere. So in the present atmosphere there is no methane and ammonia, because these are oxidized by the free oxygen, molecular oxygen, to carbon dioxide, nitrogen and water. Finally, the free oxygen led to the evolution of aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, which could satisfy the energy requirement of the organisms. Aerobic respiration, which could satisfy the energy requirement of the organisms. So that is about the origin of life. Now we'll discuss about the evidences for biological evolution. evidences for biological evolution. Evolution has occurred in nature and is continuing. Evolution has occurred in nature and is continuing, is well established and cannot be denied. It is well established, it cannot be denied. That means evolution has already occurred and still it is continuing, it is a continuous process. The occurrence of varied forms of plants and animals have been explained by the theories of organic evolution. Although there is no eyewitness, nobody has seen the process of evolution, so there is no eyewitness. So although there is no eyewitness to the process of evolution, there are enough circumstantial, experimental and material evidences. Circumstantial, experimental and material evidences in support of the process of evolution, that is descent with modification. There are lot of evidences, though there is no eyewitness. Under this, first, paleontological evidence. Paleontological evidence. So paleontology is the study of fossils. Paleontology is the study of fossils. Fossils represent past life in ancient geological period. Past life in ancient geological period and are the remains of extinct plants and animals. So those plants and animals, they are not present now, they have become extinct, and the remainings of those are known as fossils. Direct evidence comes from paleontology in support of evolution. So there is direct evidence. So fossils, if I say, you must have seen fossils, because the best example is the coal. It is the fossils of plants, the koila. So these are the remainings of the extinct plants and animals. Now, so this is the direct evidence. Now, implications of fossil records. What are the implications of fossil records? Fossils are mostly obtained from sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks means different layers. Rocks are formed in different period. So sedimentary rocks which are formed in layers. So the bottom layers are the oldest and the most superficial layers are the latest formed rocks. That means so this is a rock showing different layers, and the bottom layer is the oldest layer and the superficial layer is the latest layer. Hence, fossils obtained from bottom layers are older than those obtained from the layers above them. That means, suppose a fossil is obtained from this layer and another one from this layer. So this is older than this layer, this fossil, and the top layer, that is the latest layer. So that is the latest fossil. When the fossils are arranged according to their age, the process of evolution is revealed. Now, of a particular animal, if we arrange the fossils obtained from different layers according to their age, that will give us the process of evolution of that species. Then the fossil records establish the following facts. The fossil records establish the following facts. Number one, fossils present in different strata, means different layer. Fossils present in different strata of Earth's crust belong to different genera, means they are different genus, different genera, and differ markedly from the existing forms. So here the fossils, they are of different genera, they belong to different genera, and they are distinct from the present day species. Number two, the oldest fossils belonging to the lower strata exhibit very simple organization, and they are found to be replaced by more and more complex forms found in the upper strata. So those species are found in the oldest strata or layer, they are the simplest organisms, and gradually they become more and more complex. Then number three, some fossils are transitional forms. Some fossils are transitional forms or connecting links. Or connecting links which possess characters of both primitive and extinct group, between two groups, primitive group and the extinct group, those which have become extinct, and the existing advanced group, and the existing advanced group. One example I will give you here, example is Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx, it is a connecting link or transitional form. Archaeopteryx, it is a fossil. It is the transitional form between reptiles and birds. Between reptiles and birds. It is a connecting link. Why? It is called as a connecting link. So, it is the transitional form between reptiles and birds. It was the size of a crow, the present day crow, that was the size of Archaeopteryx. It had avian features, means features of birds. It have avian features like feathers, wings and beak. Feathers, wing and beak. In addition to reptilian features like scales, long tail and teeth. So you can see here beak is present and teeth is present, long tail is present, wing is present, feathers are present, scales are present. So it possesses both reptilian features and avian features. That's why it is regarded as a connecting link. between reptiles and birds. So first reptiles originated, then avian features developed, then reptilian features disappeared, and then they became birds. So Archaeopteryx is a connecting link. So this is a direct evidence for evolution. Number 4, the dominant groups arose near the end of one period and enjoyed dominance in the next period. Enjoyed dominance in the next period. They became extinct by the end of that period. This is because of changes occurring in the climatic conditions. So a dominant group, it appears at the end of a particular period. That means, suppose this is a particular period, now here arises the dominant species at the end of a particular period, then that enjoys in this period, and at the end it will become extinct. It become extinct, it will disappear. So the dominant groups arose near the end of one period and enjoyed dominance in the next period. They became extinct by the end of that period. This is because of changes occurring in the climatic conditions. Then number 5, the most recent products of evolution. The most recent products of evolution are mammals among animals and angiosperms among plants. Mammals among animals and angiosperms among plants. Then, as per fossil record, invertebrates alone were present up to Proterozoic era. So the entire geological period has been divided into different eras. So this is Proterozoic era, Proterozoic era, invertebrates. So invertebrates were present in Proterozoic era, that the oldest period. There was rise of fishes and amphibians in Paleozoic era. Fishes and amphibians in Paleozoic era. The Mesozoic era was dominated by the reptiles. The Mesozoic era was dominated by the reptiles. Then mammals diverged from reptiles in Triassic, so mammals diverged from reptiles in Triassic and birds diverged from reptiles in Jurassic period. So every era is divided into different periods. Now from the reptiles, mammals evolved in Triassic period and the birds evolved from reptiles in Jurassic period. Cenozoic era is the age of mammals. Cenozoic era, that is the age of mammals. Cenozoic era is regarded as the age of the mammals. Then a complete fossil record depicting the course of evolution. Here we will take one example. A complete fossil record depicting the course of evolution. So here this is a complete fossil record depicting the course of evolution. Example is horse. Example is horse. Number one, the oldest ancestor of a horse, that is the Eohippus. This one. This is the oldest fossil of horse. And Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, Pliocene, Pleistocene, these are the different periods. So here these are the species. Eohippus, then Mesohippus, Miohippus, Merychippus, Pliohippus, and Equus. So the oldest ancestor of horse, the Eohippus, lived in plains of North America, in Eocene period. So that was living in the plain in Eocene period. It was the size of a present day dog. The size was just like the present day dog size, and a 5-toed ungulate, pancha anguli visishta, 5-toed ungulate having 4 toes in the front legs and 3 toes in the hind legs. 4 toes in the front legs, 3 toes in the hind legs. All the toes touched the ground. Sabu anguli guda ground ku sparsha karuthila. Number 1. Then number 2. In Oligocene, Eohippus was replaced by mesohippus and miohippus, adapted to live in drier conditions. Adapted to live in drier conditions. Then number 3, in Miocene, both of them were replaced by Merychippus. So Mesohippus and Miohippus both are replaced by Merychippus. It had 3 toes in each leg, but here I told you that 4 toes in front legs, 3 toes in hind legs, but here there are 3 toes in both legs. So it has 3 toes in each leg, but the median toe was bigger. The median toe was bigger and stronger, bearing the entire body weight. Here the median toe was bigger and bearing the entire body weight. Then this period, so Merychippus was replaced by Pliohippus. Merychippus was replaced by Pliohippus in Pliocene period and Equus in Pleistocene. So Merychippus was replaced by Pliohippus in Pliocene and Equus in Pleistocene. In both of them, only the median toe touched the ground. So prior to them, all the toes were touching the ground, but here only the median toe touched the ground, capped with a permanent hoof, kura, capped with a permanent hoof, side toes being represented by splints. Equus resemble the modern horse. Equus resemble the modern horse. Thus, paleontological evidence constitute most convincing proof of evolution. There is no doubt that more advanced forms arose from previously existing simpler forms. This is further strengthened by the discovery of connecting links or transitional forms. Then, so this is the paleontological evidence. Then evidences from comparative anatomy. Evidences from comparative anatomy. Comparative structure of various organs. Comparative structure of various organs or parts of the body of organisms offers excellent evidence in support of organic evolution. This anatomical evidence includes number 1, homologous organs. Then analogous organs. And vestigial organs. Adaptive radiation, and adaptive convergence. So, the anatomical evidence includes homologous organs, analogous organs, vestigial organs, adaptive radiation and adaptive convergence. First, the homologous organs. Homologous organs. The organs which are structurally and ontogenetically similar. Structurally means the basic plan, and ontogenetically means embryonic development. So, the structures or the organs which are structurally and ontogenetically similar but have varied functions, varied functions are called homologous organs. So, the basic plan and the embryonic development are same, but functions are different. These organs are known as homologous organs. Homologous organs indicate close relation among the possessors of such structures. Among the possessors of such structures, example is the vertebrate forelimb. The vertebrate forelimb. The forelimbs of vertebrates, the structurally and ontogenetically similar. The basic plan of the forelimbs of all vertebrates same. Embryological development is also same, but they have different functions. They are functionally different. That's why they are called as homologous organs. The seals flipper of seals, wings of birds, wings of bats, then mole's forelimb, horse's foreleg, and human arm, means the arm, human arm, have the same basic plan, consisting of similar bones arranged in same order. So, all these wings of bats, wings of birds, seal flipper, then mole's forelimb, all these, horse's forelimb, these are all same plan. These bones include humerus, radioulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. So, these bones include the humerus, radioulna, then carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. In all, these bones are present and arranged in the same order. All vertebrate forelimb can be derived from the prototype by modification. From one prototype, all these type of forelimbs can be derived by modifications. The modifications are due to their varied functions, because they have different functions, so they have been modified. So, the modifications are due to their varied functions as a consequence of the adaptations to their habitats. Then analogous organs. Analogous organs. So, this is the just opposite of homologous organs. The organs which are different in their structure and embryonic development. They are different in their structure and embryonic development, but are similar in general appearance and functions. Similar in general appearance and functions are called analogous organs. So, structurally, ontogenetically they are different, having similar function and appearance. These organs are present in totally different groups of animals, totally different groups of animals. Analogous organs indicate the evolutionary distance. Analogous organs indicate the evolutionary distance among the possessors, and similarity in function is merely a coincidence. So they are having same function. This is just a coincidence. Example, the wings of a butterfly, bird, pterodactyl and a bat. The wings of butterfly, bird, pterodactyl and bat. So these are, they have the same function. All these structures serve the same function of flying. They fly. So same functions of flying in the air, but their structure and development are totally different. Their basic plan, the structure and the development, embryonic development are totally different. The wings of a butterfly, which is an insect, the wings of a butterfly is a dead structure. The wing of a butterfly is a dead structure made of chitin and supported by a series of hollow tubes called veins. There are hollow tubes called veins. It is a dead structure. In birds, the forelimbs are modified into wings. In birds, the forelimbs are modified into wings, which are formed of feathers attached to bones. There are feathers attached to the bones. In pterodactyl, the wing is formed of a fold of skin. The wing is formed of a fold of skin supported by elongated fourth finger. Supported by elongated fourth finger of the forelimb. In bat, the wing is a fold of integument. In bat, the wing is a fold of integument called patagium, which is supported by the elongated phalanges of the last 4 digits. The similarity in function is the result of adaptations, to the same conditions of life. Then vestigial organs. Vestigial organs. These are undersized, degenerated and non-functional organs. Undersized, degenerated and non-functional means they have no function. Non-functional organs which were once fully developed and functional in the ancestors of their possessors. So they were functional in their ancestors, but in the existing forms these organs are reduced, degenerated and having no function. These are called vestigial organs. Later they have lost their functional significance and continue to linger on without any purpose. That organ is lingering, still present without any function. These organs are fully developed and functional in other related groups. In other related groups, these organs are functional. This is an important evidence in favor of organic evolution. 100 such vestigial organs have been described in man. 100 such vestigial organs have been described in man. So I will give only one or two or three examples of these vestigial organs in human. Number one, vermiform appendix. Vermiform appendix in man. It is the remnant of the cecum, which is large and functional in herbivorous mammals. In herbivorous animals, the cecum is large and functional. In the cecum of herbivores which feed on the plants and their products, plant products, the plant cell wall is made of cellulose. So, in the cecum of herbivores, cellulose is digested by the enzyme cellulase produced by bacteria inhabiting there. In the cecum, bacteria are present. They produce the enzyme cellulase which digests cellulose. This is in herbivorous mammals. The presence of non-functional reduced cecum as vermiform appendix, that is not called as cecum, it is called as vermiform appendix in human. So this is a vestigial organ. The presence of non-functional reduced cecum as vermiform appendix indicates man's herbivorous ancestry with descendants becoming carnivorous, now omnivorous. The ancestor of human were herbivorous, then they became carnivorous and now omnivorous. They feed on the plants and animals. So omnivorous. That's why there is no need of cellulose digestion, because the human beings, they take soft and cooked food. There is no need of cellulose digestion. So man's habit of taking soft and cooked food has also reduced the need of bacterial digestion of cellulose in the cecum. That's why it is non-functional. Although it is non-functional, it is still present. So that is a direct evidence of evolution. Then another example, that is muscles of pinna. Muscles of pinna. Pinna means the external ear. Muscles of pinna. There are three auricular muscles which are large and functional in quadrupeds like cow, dog, elephant and rabbit. With these muscles, they can direct their pinnae towards the source of sound. They can direct their pinnae towards the source of sound. In case of human, these muscles are non-functional. ये जो muscles of pinna कहली, हाथी हो, गाई हो इत्यादि, सेमाने तांको कान को हलई देबे जो पटु साउंड आछी धरिया पाई, किंतु आमे हमर कान को ऑटोमेटिकली हलई परिबा नाही. We cannot vibrate, but the muscles are present. That means these muscles are non-functional. So these are known as the vestigial organs. In baboons and macacas, degeneration has not proceeded so far. In baboons and macacans, degeneration has not proceeded so far, and ears are voluntarily movable. Ichha anusare they can move their ear. Then another example is nictitating membrane. nictitating membrane, that is the third eyelid. The third eyelid आखि उपरे आमर रहा उपरे गोटे तले गोटे बाकी मझे गोटे रोचे थर्ड आईलिड. सो थर्ड आईलिड प्रेजेंट इन द इनर कॉर्नर ऑफ ईच आई, भीतर पटे ईच इनर कॉर्नर ऑफ ईच आई ऑफ मैन corresponds to the nictitating membrane of many animals like frog, dog, horse, birds, etc. So third eyelid present in the inner corner of each eye, that corresponds to the nictitating membrane of many other animals. In man, it is in the form of a fold of a place, just in the form of a fold of a place, which is totally unstretchable, that cannot be stretched, unstretchable. Vestigial organs in other animals, for example, the python has vestiges of bones of pelvic girdle and hind limb embedded in the place of abdomen. ଆଉ 5 ମିନିଟ୍ ହେବ ନା ବନ୍ଦ କରିଦେବା ବସିଲେଣି ଅଛି କି 5 ମିନିଟ୍ କରିଦେଉଛି. Then adaptive radiation. Structurally, limbs in mammals exhibit adaptive radiation. Basically, all mammalian limbs can be derived from pentadactyl limb representing the ancestral plan of the simplest organization. Modification are due to varied adaptations. So this is the prototype. They are the terrestrial forms having short pentadactyl limbs, and from this originated or modified in case of bat, that is aerial for flying, and a horse means cursorial adaptation for running, then fossorial means for burrowing, rat, then whale aquatic adaptation for swimming, then for climbing, that is known as arboreal. Each limb modification represents a separate evolutionary line radiating or diverging from prototype in a, that is a generalized pattern pentadactyl pattern. Adaptive radiations or divergence, this is known as divergence, explains descent with modification in response to different environmental conditions. Now, adaptive convergence. Two or more forms undergoing similar modifications or adaptations during their course of their evolution is called parallel evolution. Two different forms that undergo similar pattern of evolution are called parallel evolution or adaptive convergence. Body forms of entirely different groups undergo similar changes when adapted to same environment, and such a phenomenon is called adaptive convergence. Example, the whales and ichthyosaurs attained fish-like body. They have fish-like body with their limbs modified into fins or flippers, all aquatic adaptations, because fins or flippers, these are aquatic adaptations. The whale is a mammal, and ichthyosaur is an extinct reptile. So you can see here a mammal and a reptile, they have the body appearance like a fish. This is a coincidence because of their habitat. So presence of vestigial organs cannot be explained by the theory of spatial creation.